Hi, and welcome back. Today, let me ask you something simple. How do you feel when someone criticizes you? Not in theory. In theory, everyone is mature, wise, emotionally stable, and probably glowing softly like a motivational poster. But in real life, someone says, maybe you could do this better. And suddenly your brain hears, you are a failure, your ancestors are disappointed, and everyone secretly knew it. Criticism is strange. A few words enter your ears, and your nervous system starts acting like a medieval castle under attack. The guards run to the walls. The alarm bell rings. Somewhere inside your head, a tiny soldier screams, "They have insulted the kingdom!" And the kingdom is just your ego wearing a cheap crown. But criticism is not always an attack. Sometimes it is information. Sometimes it is care. Sometimes it is jealousy wearing a fake mustache. And sometimes it is just someone being rude because their personality was assembled during a power outage. The hard part is learning the difference. Imagine a child building a tower from blocks. An adult says, if you put the big block at the bottom, the tower will stand better. That is helpful criticism. It points to the thing, not the child's worth. It says, the tower can improve. It does not say, you are a disgrace to architecture. But many adults hear criticism as if they are still that child. Someone comments on their work, their behavior, their idea, their voice, their clothes, their parenting, their business, their video, their drawing, their cooking, and suddenly it feels personal. Not, this part could improve, but I am not good enough. That is where pain enters. Criticism touches the gap between who we want to be and who we fear we are. If you already doubt yourself, criticism does not arrive as feedback. It arrives as proof. Proof that you are not smart enough. Not talented enough, not respected enough, not lovable enough. Your brain grabs one comment and says, excellent, more evidence for the case against me. Very professional, very depressing. This is why two people can receive the same criticism and react completely differently. One person hears, useful, I can improve. Another hears, I have been emotionally murdered in daylight. The words matter, but the inner wound matters too. Criticism does not only hit the ear, it hits memory. It hits pride. It hits old shame. It hits the part of us that wants to belong and not be rejected by the tribe. Because for ancient humans, rejection was dangerous. If the group pushed you out, you did not just lose social comfort. You could lose protection, food, safety, and eventually the thrilling opportunity to be eaten by nature. So the brain learned to care deeply about what others think. Too deeply sometimes. Today, someone leaves a negative comment online, and your ancient brain reacts like the village has voted to throw you into the forest. But it is not always the forest. Sometimes it is just Brian from the internet, typing with one hand and eating chips with the other. To handle criticism well, we first need to sort it. Not all criticism deserves the same response. There is constructive criticism. This kind is specific, useful, and focused on improvement. It sounds like, the idea is good, but the beginning is confusing. Or, your tone was too sharp in that conversation. Or, this design works, but the text is hard to read. Constructive criticism may still sting. Nobody enjoys hearing that their masterpiece has the emotional impact of a wet cardboard box. But if the criticism gives you something usable, it has value. Then there is destructive criticism. This kind is vague, insulting, and often more about the other person's mood than your growth. It sounds like, this is terrible. You always mess things up. You are useless. Everyone can see you are bad at this. That is not feedback. That is someone throwing emotional garbage and calling it honesty. Honesty without respect is often just cruelty wearing a clean shirt. Then there is projection criticism. That is when someone attacks you because they are uncomfortable with something inside themselves. You try something new and they say, "Who do you think you are?" Translation, I am scared to try, and your courage is making me uncomfortable. You improve your life and they say, "You think you are better than everyone?" Translation, please stay small so I do not have to look at my own choices. Not always, but often enough to be suspicious. So before swallowing criticism whole, ask, who is saying this? Do they understand the topic? Do they want to help me, control me, shame me, or just release steam like an overheated kettle? A stranger yelling, "You are bad," is not the same as a skilled mentor saying, "This part needs work." Do not give every voice equal authority. That is how your mind becomes a public toilet with Wi-Fi. You need filters. Here is a simple filter. Is it true, useful, and specific? True means there is some evidence. Useful means you can do something with it. Specific means it points to a behavior, decision, or result, not your entire identity as a human being. You interrupted me 3 times during the meeting is specific. You are impossible is fog with anger inside it. If criticism is true and useful, take the lesson. If it is partly true, take the useful part and leave the poison. If it is false, cruel, or manipulative, do not turn it into a tattoo on your soul. Let it pass. You are not required to build a home for every insult that knocks on the door. But there is another trap. Some people reject every criticism by saying, they are just jealous. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes they are not jealous. Sometimes your work really does need improvement. Your ego may want to call every critic a hater, but your future self may need some of those notes. Growth requires the uncomfortable skill of listening without collapsing. You can be open without being defenseless. You can be confident without being blind. You can say, that hurt, but is there something useful here? That question is powerful. It separates pain from information. Because criticism can hurt and still be helpful. A dentist can hurt you too, but that does not mean the cavity was a personal attack. So what do you actually do when criticism hits? First, pause. Do not answer immediately if your body is already preparing a dramatic courtroom speech. Take a breath. Relax your jaw. Lower your shoulders. Give your brain a few seconds to stop acting like a squirrel inside a burning piano. The first reaction is often defense. That is normal. But normal does not always mean wise. Second, ask for clarity. What exactly do you mean? Can you give me an example? What part should I improve? This does 2 useful things. It turns vague criticism into something measurable, and it exposes empty criticism for what it is. A real helper can usually explain. A person just trying to hurt you often has nothing behind the smoke. Third, separate yourself from the thing being criticized. Your idea is not you. Your mistake is not you. Your work is not your entire value. If your drawing needs better lines, you are not a failed person. If your speech needs structure, you are not a disaster in shoes. If your video is too slow, you are not morally defective. You made something. It can improve. That is all. Fourth, look for the pattern. One person's opinion may be noise. 5 people saying the same thing may be data. If one person says your cake is too sweet, maybe they dislike sugar. If everyone at the party is quietly drinking water like survivors of a frosting accident, maybe the cake has a problem. Patterns matter. Fifth, protect your boundaries. Being open to feedback does not mean standing still while someone uses you as an emotional punching bag. You can say, I am willing to hear feedback but not insults. Or, please be specific. Or, I will think about what you said. Or, that was not helpful. Calm boundaries are not weakness. They are self-respect with better posture. And if you are the one giving criticism, remember this. The goal is not to win. The goal is to help reality become clearer. Criticize the action, not the person. Be specific. Be honest. Do not use, I am just being honest, as a license to be socially poisonous. Say what can improve, why it matters, and what might help. Good criticism opens a door. Bad criticism throws a chair through the window and says, you are welcome. In the end, criticism is not the enemy. Unfiltered criticism is the enemy. Ego panic is the enemy. Cruelty pretending to be truth is the enemy. But useful criticism is one of the fastest tools for growth. It can show you blind spots. It can save you years. It can make your work better, your relationships cleaner, and your decisions sharper. The trick is not to love criticism. Nobody has to enjoy being corrected. If someone says they love criticism, check if they are a robot or trying to sell a leadership seminar. The trick is to survive the first sting. Filter the message, take the useful part, and leave the rest. So, next time someone criticizes you, ask yourself, is this an attack, a lesson, or just noise? What is true here? What can I use? What can I let go? You do not have to accept every criticism. You do not have to reject every criticism. You have to learn how to sort it, because the person who can hear feedback without falling apart becomes very hard to stop. If this video was useful, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you do not miss the next animated story about psychology, behavior, and the strange little machine inside our heads.